hitting the stream button now, and we should be good.
Apparently we're live. Are we live? Good evening, everybody. You'll get this in about 25 seconds, I would think. Yeah. How are we all out there? Who've we got? We've got Martin and Mad and Keith and Rob and GD's in there, Costello, Trev, Bruni, VB, Liana, Blaze, Morph, Jester, Liam, Mike B. What's in there? Yes, good evening to you all. I hope you are all well, as can be expected on this lovely Tuesday. Not getting any response from there, so who can see me and who can't?
Yeah, we're all good.
Oh yes, Chief. Hello, Chief. Hello, Liana. Right, yes, we're all here. Nosworth, da Rob. I wish I could speak Welsh. The only Welsh I know is Poppity Ping. Yes. Evening, Morph RV. Yes, refresh everybody, but you can't hear me if you haven't refreshed. Dave the Rayon. Hello, Marco and co. Yes, I've got Mr. Dibley with me today, but as you will see, he's not moving. No, his camera has gone bleh. After last week's debacle with his camera. It's finally died. So we've got a lovely still image there from Vapefest 2014. Yes. No cutting across to Gary, so he can blow as much cloud as you like tonight, as long as he doesn't make any noise like last week.
No, I should be quiet. I should be quiet. I think you should tell the truth, though, mate. That it was too many complaints about the ugly mug, which is why we've had to put up the best image that you can find.
Yeah, which is of course me. Yeah, I'm on camera one. Yeah, it is me. So hopefully we are all in sync, or at least I'm in sync, because his lips aren't going to move. No, he's just got that smile on his face, and I know why. I know where Lewis's hand is. Yeah. Anyway. We're going to be live in a minute, so in a few seconds. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds of the bug. Yes. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are we all? It is Tuesday. It's just gone 9 o'clock and it's the 24th of February. Looking across at that monitor just to make sure I have the right date. Yes, as you can see, I've less hair this week. I had it chopped. Yes, so I can't be considered having hair by Brillo pads anymore. I can't remember who it was. It said that a few weeks ago, but there you go. So yes, it's chopped for the summer. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Dibley, and he's not moving because his camera has finally given up the ghost after playing all sorts of tricks on us for the past couple of weeks. It has now died. So you'll just see his smile there.
Apologies. I reckon it was somebody mentioned last week that smearing it with Vaseline or something to get a Moody shot. Now that may have finished it. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, Moody shot's quite good. A little bit of Vaseline on the lens, or a silk stocking works quite well.
I'm quite partial to both, to be honest with you. So
yes. So this week on 50 Shades of Dibley. Anyway, back to that shot. We have got some good stuff coming up today. We have got an interview that I did at the weekend with Professor Robert West in relation to the story in the Mail on Sunday and the adoptive parents debacle. So all that is coming up after we have these. Yes. Good evening. You're watching Vaper Trails TV, and this, my friends, this is Vaper Scene.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Yes, good evening, and welcome to this week's Vaper Scene. We've got a lot to get through today, and the first half is really going to be in relation to the story in the Daily Mail. However, I wanted to talk about this story that's going on Facebook at the moment. You'll see this story going around on Facebook. E-cigarette kills first victim after teen boy dies from lung cancer. And there's a picture, which I'm not showing you, of this guy called Frank DeLeo, moments before he died of lung cancer. This story, the picture, I'm not showing you for two reasons. Firstly, it's a copyrighted picture, and secondly, the picture is of somebody from 2011 in hospital just before they died in Syria. The whole story is a complete fabrication, and the picture is from a place, and Sav has got the link to the story and the link to the picture, which you can put into chat if you want to have a look at it. You can use something called TinEye, or you can use Google reverse image search, and that brings you up with various places this picture originated from. Please, if you see anyone sharing it on Facebook, just tell them to stop sharing it. We shouldn't be sharing this kind of stuff and giving the people the satisfaction of this story going round when it is completely untrue, and it's really grinding my gears right now. So every time I've seen it, I've commented that it is a complete load of BS, and it is a crazy situation to be in if they're stooping that low to creating these pathetic lies to try and give vaping a bad name. It's really grinding my gears. So please just don't share that story. Just click on it and saying I don't want to see this in Facebook, and we'll get rid of it, because these people do not deserve to have that story put around, and it's not fair for the family as well of that young lad who's died. It's not fair at all, using his image. Anyway, that being said, let's move on to the main kind of story this week, and it goes to the Daily Mail, which was from Sunday. A loving couple banned from adopting because husband had e-cigarette. And I won't show you the entire piece. It does go quite a lot. There's quite a lot of text there. Again, Sav has got the link to this story, which she can put up. But in that story, Professor Robert West was quoted, and he was quoted as saying the policy was badly thought out and would cause significant harm. And it's really that apparently Staffordshire County Council had denied this couple the chance to adopt because a social worker had seen the husband using an e-cigarette. And it's caused a huge stir, as you would think it would. On the Mirror, there was a poll, should e-cigarette smokers be allowed to adopt? And last week when I checked, 89% said yes, 11% said no. And earlier on this afternoon, on this poll, this is at 5 o'clock, 90% of people who voted said yes, this family should be able to adopt if they use an e-cigarette. The whole thing is absolutely crazy. Now, the BAAF, who are quoted also in that story, have given an update on their policy, which I'll show you very shortly. But first of all, I tweeted Professor Robert West and asked him to give me some comments, and he very kindly spoke to me on Sunday. So this is what Professor West had to say, and just before I do that, this is what Professor West is. He's Professor of Health Psychology and Director of Tobacco Studies, Cancer Research UK Health Behaviour Unit, Department of Epidemiology and Public Health at UCL. So he knows what he's talking about, don't you think? Yeah. Anyway, this is what Professor West had to say when I find my VT. And I've completely lost it. Bear with me while I find it. It's disappeared. It has disappeared. While I find that, oh, there we go. I found it now. Yes, here we go. This is what Professor West said on Sunday. So we've seen what the Daily Mail have to say, and also that Professor West has been quoted by the Daily Mail as saying that the policy was badly thought out and would cause significant harm. And I'm joined now via Skype by Professor West. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You were quoted by the Daily Mail there. Would you like to just let us know exactly where the qualification comes from?
What my title is. Yes, I'm Professor of Health Psychology and Director of Tobacco Studies at University College London.
And of course, a lot of people will have seen you before on Dave Don Show because you've been on a number of times. And we do come to you with these stories because we like to get professional comments about things. What did you think when you were first brought the story by the Mail?
To be quite honest, I wasn't 100% sure. We know that newspapers don't always get things right and they like to wind people up. So I wasn't 100% sure that it was true. And so also, I think bearing that in mind, it would be worth considering it in the hypothetical, just in case some of these councils feel very put upon because they say, no, this is not our policy at all. But if it is a policy, then it's obviously something that, as I say, hasn't been thought through. Where it comes from, I think, is that a lot of people who don't know about e-cigarettes and don't know about vaping, and that includes county councillors and even people in public health, they find it very confusing, the difference between the electronic cigarette with the word cigarette in it and the cigarette. And I think what would probably help them is if they think of the electronic cigarette as an electronic nicotine delivery device, which it's actually a lot more like other nicotine delivery devices like gum or patch or spray or something like that. They just happen to be typically better at doing that job. And they're much closer to those than they are to a cigarette, particularly when it comes to the harms associated with it. So, if you're living in a household with someone who's using an electronic cigarette, and they're using an electronic cigarette precisely because they've stopped smoking, and this is the way that they're using to do that, then it would be very similar to living in a household with someone who's using a nicotine patch or nicotine gum or a nicotine nasal spray. The harm to other people would be negligible. And I think this is where the confusion arises. People are getting the cigarette and the electronic cigarette too mixed up.
Yeah, it does seem to be that some people can't differentiate the difference between using lit tobacco as opposed to using an electronic delivery device to get the nicotine in. So if somebody uses an inhalator or if they use the little mist spray, are they not delivering the same kind of nicotine into the atmosphere?
With the electronic cigarette, as with things like the inhalator, you're not getting any nicotine off the tip like you would off a cigarette. So off a cigarette, you've got the tip that's burning and that's producing smoke and nicotine and so on. The only nicotine that gets out into the atmosphere is stuff that has been ingested into the mouth or into the lungs and then re-exhaled. And of course, that will be similar for other nicotine products. So how much nicotine is in the atmosphere is going to be broadly similar. But to be quite honest, it's not the quantities of nicotine in the atmosphere when someone's vaping or when someone's using a nicotine product are so small. The idea that it's going to be causing health harms is just not credible. The only thing that there might be and could be, and this is something that obviously one needs to look at, is you can get the aroma or the smell of the vapor. You've got a bit of water vapor. You've got some glycerol or propylene glycol. You've got the flavorings, so you can tell if you're very close to someone who's vaping that they're vaping if you've got your eyes closed. But if you're more than a few feet away, you'd hardly notice. So, and it's nothing like a cigarette. I mean, the comparison with a cigarette is just, it's chalk and cheese. So that's the thing I think people need to understand, and it's not being helped, I think, when you get some highly respected colleagues or organisations who just get it wrong or tell it wrong. I mean, I don't know whether they're doing it deliberately or not, but it's hard to imagine they don't realize that there's a difference between vaping and smoking.
I think the point is that the right people aren't being asked the question when policies or decisions are being made, and I think that's the thing that that most people are going to recognise here, is that speaking to yourself, you know exactly what's going on. It's your field. You understand the mechanics of it. You understand the psychology of it, but also the medical side of things. And yet, some of the associations, the BAFF, the BAAF, in their practice note 51, have said in one part that adoption agencies are required to take into account the government view that there should be no blanket ban when considering applications from prospective adopters. But then later on in the same document, they say that carers who have successfully given up smoking, or so that should be lit tobacco, should not be allowed to adopt or foster high-risk groups of children. So that's children under 5, children with a disability or chest problems, heart disease or gluea, until they've successfully given up smoking for a minimum period of 12 months.
Yeah. Of course, this is a separate issue from the vaping. Although some people might, in those organisations, in the councils, might get it mixed up with vaping. But I'm presuming that the reason that they say that is because up to about 12 months, there's quite a substantial risk of relapse when anyone tries to stop smoking. And then after 12 months, that risk is much lower. And so they're saying, well, if the person's only just stopped smoking, then there's still a risk that they're going to go back to smoking. But this is very tricky territory. This is it's very difficult to be discriminating in that way. But it is a separate issue from if they're using an e-cigarette. So it would that edict would apply to someone who'd gone cold turkey and not smoked for, let's say, 9 months, and it seems pretty tough to me to say to someone who's stopped smoking for 9 months that they can't adopt a child. But that is, I guess, the decision that they're coming to. It seems to me to be one of these areas, like so many in life, where actually if you do anything in a blanket way, you're going to catch out things that you're going to make mistakes in both directions. You absolutely have to take things on a case-by-case basis and apply a bit of common sense.
It was apparently Staffordshire County Council, and I've asked them for a quote or a statement on that policy. But there was also a great deal of other councils who have the same opinion. And I think it'd be a real shame if a perfectly adequate couple who are financially stable and who could give a child a loving home would be not allowed to, because either one or both have either smoked 11 months ago or are using e-cigarettes instead of that. I mean, I gave up 3 years, 4 days ago. That's the last time I used lit tobacco, and I've been vaping exactly the same amount of time. And not once have I relapsed and gone to a cigarette. Not once. I even thought about it. Now I'm not in a position to adopt any children, but I would have thought if I was, then the fact that I use an e-cigarette shouldn't really deter adoption agencies or county councils from providing that service.
No, it shouldn't. I guess you'll find out more as time goes on as to whether this is something that councils have thought through and developed a policy on, or whether and made a mistake, or whether they've just not thought it through and they're in the process of forming policies. But I think that a positive thing is that with this story coming out, it is kind of it is bringing to light the issues that people who are using e-cigarettes so that they don't smoke cigarettes are facing. And there is concern about public bodies and people who are not really very clued up on it making this false comparison with smoking. And so, something like this can help to educate people so that they realize that, as I said earlier, that electronic cigarettes are much closer to, they're like a kind of a better version of a lot of the nicotine replacement products than they are to cigarettes, certainly in relation to the harm. Then I think, that wouldn't be a bad thing. You get better education, you get people knowing more about it.
I think that's the thing. The various bodies need to understand more about the appliances, the mods that we use, but also speaking to professionals like yourself who understand tobacco harm reduction, which, as we know, e-cigarettes are proving much better than conventional NRT.
Well, yes. As far as we can tell, I mean, do bear in mind, as a scientist, I have to say that the evidence is, the evidence is still, there's a lot less of it with e-cigarettes. What we can say is that very clearly there are a substantial number of people out there who've succeeded in stopping using electronic cigarettes who had tried all the other things in the past and hadn't been successful. So, that's clear. And so clearly electronic cigarettes have a very important part to play. And what is most striking about them, and this is something that has, caught a lot of people by surprise, is how popular they've become. They are by far the most popular method of stopping now in this country. And there's got to be a reason for that. But we still need to look at the levels of effectiveness, how we can make them more effective. And we also need to recognize that there are other methods as well. And as your listeners will probably know, I was one of the people who helped to set up the stop smoking services. And when they're done well, they're terrific. And they do a very good job for people who want to use them. So my view is that anything we can do to reduce the amount of smoking that's going on is going to save a lot of lives and prevent a lot of misery. E-cigarettes have a very important part to play. But if I could make one plea to your viewers, it's that e-cigarette users, people working in the stop smoking services, even people who, I know this may not seem likely, but actually even people who make drugs like varenicline, we're all kind of actually trying to achieve the same thing. And we are not each other's enemies. If we work together and sort of act collectively, then against the other side, the dark side, then I think we can achieve a lot more. So I would like to see more solidarity among all of us who are working together for that aim.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant point to make, really, Professor West. We need to be solidarity between everybody. There are those who want to stub us out, to use a cigarette term, and ban people from vaping in public. But also stories like this, it seems to be that the negative side comes out in the regular press and the media, as opposed to the more successful stories, and also about the abilities of the devices. We do know that there is more research to be done, but we do know that it is a heck of a lot safer than smoking, is it not?
Absolutely, there's no question about it. You may be interested to know that although, in my experience, although some of the stories that come out are quite negative, most of the journalists that I speak to, and I do speak to quite a lot, actually can't see what the fuss is about. Most of the journalists are actually, they think, well, surely e-cigarettes are safer than cigarettes. What's the problem here? But what they're getting is fed sort of these kinds of things from certain quarters that then make them write the stories, and then of course they write the story that is going to sell the newspaper. So that's how I see it panning out. But it's I think that if you in my experience, if you ask the journalists, they don't really have a problem with e-cigarettes mostly at all. They actually, in fact, many journalists, as you know, are actually smokers or ex-smokers, and some of them are even e-cigarette users. So I think we can work together to get everyone educated as to the realities of this. Then everyone will benefit.
Yes, I agree with you there on that point as well. I'm sure in the old days of the newsrooms, they were all there with their typewriters and their packet of caps and full strength. Other cigarettes are obviously available, and we don't want to exclude anybody really. I mean, this show is about vaping, and the people who do vape no longer use lit tobacco. Some still dual fuel; they'll still use both. But we're very much libertarian. I'm libertarian, so is Dave Dawn, and we believe that people should do exactly what they would like to do. Obviously, there are concerns about secondhand smoke still, and there are concerns about smoking around children, which are understandable. But it's the electronic cigarette that's been demonised yet again here, I think.
And so it's just a question of getting the message out and repeating it. Broken record. My wife is very good at pointing out that when you're speaking to journalists or speaking to anyone, if you've got a clear point to make, you just keep making it, and the message does get through. That's the key. It's broken record.
Indeed, and this is exactly what we will keep doing.
Yes.
We'll keep speaking to you and others like yourself who have the knowledge and also the expertise to try and dispel the rumours and dispel the myths and dispel the bad stories and in some cases the lies that we get in the press. Professor S, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know you're a busy man, and I know you're busy next week, so I appreciate you coming on the show.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
And hopefully we'll speak to Professor West at some point in the future. So yes, back to the studio. Yes, there you go. That was Professor Robert West talking to me on Sunday on the subject. And we're going to get the first set of ads, and then when we come back, we'll have a few comments and we'll let Mr. Dibley have his say. And I've also got the press release from the BAAF as well. So we will see you in 2 minutes.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
And yes, welcome back to part 2 of this week's show. I'd like to thank Professor West for taking his time out again on Sunday. He was very generous with his time there. Once his washing machine had finished beeping. Yes, the weekend's always good. I need to qualify something there. The bit you saw from the BAAF, that practice note 51, was from 2007, and I contacted the council concerned for a quote or anything. I never had zip reply, nothing. But the BAAF did come back to me, and they have a statement which went out yesterday, and it is thus. Updated recommendation from BAAF regarding e-cigarettes. We are continuing to monitor research discussing the issue regarding e-cigarettes, and in the light of the latest Public Health England report, which states that the hazards associated with use of products, e-cigarettes, currently on the market is likely to be extremely low, and certainly much lower than smoking. We are updating our recommendations. At the next meeting of our Health Group Advisory Committee, we will be recommending that agencies now consider e-cigarettes as different to tobacco cigarettes. Agencies should therefore recognise the low risk to children and not see the use of e-cigarettes as a reason to preclude foster carers or adopters purely on this basis. Each circumstance should be risk assessed on an individual basis. The welfare of children is our primary concern, and the long-term impact of e-cigarettes is unknown. E-cigarettes appear to have positive benefits for smokers when providing them with a route to abstinence, and the risk to children from passive smoke is lessened. However, this needs to be balanced against the risk, providing a model for the child of smoking now or in the future. We will continue to monitor research into e-cigarettes and will continue reviewing our recommendations in line with latest research. So that's what the BAAF say yesterday, and they are the people the council look to for how to create their policies. They've also got a meeting. Yes, they've got a meeting in March in Cardiff. And one of the many speakers is Florence Meridew, looking at e-cigarettes, helpful or harmful, and frequently asked questions, common conditions in adult health. And then the one above that, Dr. Peter Barnes, too fat to foster. So if you use e-cigs and you're fat, then you may be in serious trouble. Yes, what can I say? A few comments from chat there. Hi-Fi Stud. Bottom line. They want to denigrate vapers. They want to stigmatise them so they don't give up what they are called. Every time that gets brought up by ants, it's an excuse, like most of their Fuzzy Ann said, what's going to be the next ridiculous excuse? Second-hand vapor. And Hi-Fi also said the guidelines are per council. Adoption agencies have different standards to apply for each individual council, and they work for multiple councils. And finally, for Mr. Stud, we have to keep repeating and repeating. The story is the same every time. Eventually, although folks will listen and sing off the right hymn sheet, and the naysayers, e-cig deniers, will be isolated and made to look like the utterly contemptible fools they are. Yes.
Bonkers.
And I just said in chat, Dave just said, I think we need to get Prof West and Linda Bold in front of them in March. Not a bad idea at all, my friend. Whether or not they will get an invite, or whether or not they'll be able to, or whether or not they can, is yet to be seen, I guess. Right then, Gary, since you've been sat there listening, what's your thoughts?
I think one of the comments I liked in chat that popped up earlier was that smokers also make great parents, and I had my 6-year vaporversary, whatever you want to call it, this month as well, and my daughter is 7. So for a year of her life, I've smoked, and for the remainder, I've vaped. Now, I can understand, obviously, that the adoption agencies in their wisdom, they have criteria that they must adhere to, and in some cases with very good reason. But surely here's a family looking to give a home to a child, who has tried to to do something to change his nicotine delivery system, and to do it, in probably, you don't know what the guy, or what the guy's tried in his time. He may have been striving and trying to quit lit tobacco, for the pure reason of gaining a better chance of adoption.
Yeah.
It's just bloody ridiculous, really, isn't it? Is the best way to describe it. I mean, I see that a lot of people in chat were talking about maybe changing the name, changing, e-cigs, changing, whatever we call them. I might call it my little doodah, but I call many things that, and the wife doesn't know which one's coming. But it's. I don't think that's not going to get us anywhere. I mean, Sir West, I'm going to call him that from now on. He made a very, very, very valid and good point right at the end there. And again, this one hits home quite a lot, and it's the broken record. You've got to keep on and keep on and keep on and keep on, and just grind, as I'm going to coin one of, grind the bastards down. That's the way we're going to go about it. Keeping on. I mean, and I know the broken record syndrome because my wife has been nagging for a kitchen since we moved in the house, and it's finally getting to me. It's taken a long time, but eventually it will work.
Well, there's only so much you can make on a camping stove, mate. Really.
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, this is very true. I've got some more comments from chat here. Dave has said, geez, man, in 1955 when I was born, 87% of the adult population smoked. Were they all bad parents? Were they? No, this is very true. I mean, my mum smoked all the way through my childhood, and I didn't start smoking until I was 15. And it wasn't because my mum smoked. It was because my mates smoked. But by 15, I was going to the pub quite a lot, being 6'5" and a big lad, so I looked well over 18. In fact, I looked well over 18 when I was 12, but, there you go. So it wasn't the fact that my mum smoked around the house. I used to go down the shop and get Regals. Other cigarette brands are, of course, available. So, yes, it's a funny old thing, really. Let's hope that the negativity that's come from that story in fact goes back to the councils and they start looking at this in a different light, looking at it in a sensible way, and see where it goes, really. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, it's got to be, the fact that it's hit the press is, it's going to make people sit up and look, isn't it? And there are so many. They're screaming out at the moment for people to adopt children, and by like I said earlier, I understand they've got a duty of care where they place people, but Jesus, some of the people you meet on the street with children, you think, how the hell have you, do you know I'm going with that, no one vets a couple that get together and for a weekend in Ibiza, and a child can come out of that and they could be complete, absolute, alcoholic, raging, cocaine taking, you know where I'm going with that, don't you? And when you get people and who genuinely want to adopt, and like I said, as probably tried to change his ways to adopt, it's just it's wrong. It's wrong.
Yes. All I'm going to say further on this one is, if you look at the dramatic fails that many council social services departments have managed, Baby Peter, Victoria Columbier, to name just 2 high-profile cases, not to mention the girls in Rotherham and in Bolton. So many failures, and yet they have a chance to do something good, to put children in homes that are loving, that can look after them, and to preclude somebody because they happen to use an e-cigarette it's just a bit wrong, isn't it, really? Let's go to the second set of ads, and when we come back we're going to look at this. And it's the iTaste MVP 3. Yes. So I'll have a look at that when we come back. See you in 2.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Vapers, Dripper just got 40% bigger. So if you love discovering new e-liquids, tell Dripper what flavours you like and we'll send you 70ml of juice and at least 5 flavours. With a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe, dripper.co.uk.
RY4 Radio.
What's in this e-cig cloud? Harmless water vapour, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapour, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapour. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapour does not. And that vapour contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette smoke. Electronic cigarette vapour. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vapor Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
And we are back in the room. Yes. How are we doing? Time for something else now. Yeah. And we're going to look at the iTaste MVP3, which I picked up last week. Yes. On the way to Scotland, that I wasn't supposed to be going to. It's a very strange happening, but there you go. I won't digress too much, for we've got a couple of bits of ET coming up. So here is my thoughts, or here are my thoughts, on the old MVP version 3.0. Yeah, enjoy this.
Here we have for you the Innokin iTaste MVP3. Oh yes, not the 1, not the 2, but the 3. Let's take a look at the outside of the box and then we'll flip inside. On the outside of the box you will see the obligatory Innokin security scratch and check label, which all true, proper and Pucker Innokin devices come with. You scratch off the little section here like so. Go to the website and that will show you whether or not your device is genuine or not. I know this is because this came from Innokin. And here we have the inside packaging, the plastic box, normally sealed, but I have been using this for a few days. And in here you have your MVP3. You have a USB to micro USB cable, and you also get, in the departure from the usual with the MVPs, is you get an Ego adapter. So it's a 510 to Ego adapter. If you remember on the V1 and the V2, you had, this is a V1 look, you had the Ego threading on the top, and in order to use a tank, you needed to use a beautification ring really, otherwise it looked a bit silly, and it kind of overhung a little bit. And it was also a red display, and the button was on the front there, and also on the bottom you saw the USB output with a little on-off switch, and the USB charging port on the bottom. What you'll see on the MVP3 on the bottom section is the USB output, but the input is on the bottom side, which is rather good. Let me just move these out of the way for a sec, and we'll take a closer look at the unit itself. Let me zoom in. There we go. So, as you can see, on all four sides, there's no buttons on the front anymore. All the buttons are on the side, the fire button and the plus and minus button, and of course the screen. On the top you have a 510 connection with 4 little air channels there, and here you have a tricolour LED light, which will go green for full battery, amber for kind of halfway, and red you really need to charge your battery. Let's go back to the bottom section again. You have, let me turn it around that way, then you can read what it says. You've got a USB output here, which you can use your USB cable for to charge your devices, which I did last week because I unexpectedly had to go to Scotland, and I had no phone charger. So I used this. It also very niftily comes with this little kind of retractable, removable cable, which is quite short, I have to say. Would be nice if it was longer, but it's got the micro USB connection on it. So if you were stuck somewhere and your phone was about to die, and you had this with you with enough charge in it, then you could effectively give your phone a little boost, which is handy. I wouldn't recommend that's used all the time. I would still use it with a USB cable, proper one, and this one, the best one really. Let's go to this side, and you'll see here we've got the fire button and the display, and plus and minus to change your voltages or wattages. You would have seen there it said click 3 times on. This has got a 3 clicks on, 3 clicks off setup. So if I click it 3 times, you get the Innokin technology logo, and then it comes up with your display. And I'm trying to keep this in shot. There we go. And it goes off after approximately 5 seconds, which is handy. So it's not going to deplete your battery too much. You'll be able to see what you're doing, and then it goes out, which is quite handy. This is a variable voltage or a variable wattage. It's currently in wattage mode, and if I wanted it in voltage mode, you simply depress the fire button and then hold down the minus, and that changes it into voltage mode. It then flashes. If you press the fire button again, it then locks it into voltage mode. You will also see that if you depress the plus or the minus buttons, nothing happens. Why, I hear you ask? Well, it's got auto lock. So if you hold down the plus or the minus for a couple of seconds, the display will start to flash, and then you can change your voltage or your wattage to your heart's content simply by pressing your buttons. And there we go. It's now going down, and it goes from 3 volts to 9 volts, or from 9 volts to 3 volts, and it cycles through.
So it's not a case of, it's just locked itself there. It's not a case of you having to go up and all the way down again. You can just go all the way through from 9 to 3. If we then press the fire button, that locks that in place. To go back to wattage, you press your fire button and hold down the plus button. And now we are back in wattage. And we can change the wattage from 6 watts all the way up to 30 watts. And then once you hit either of those, it will then cycle around to the next. So it's gone from 6 there to 30. We could go from 30 to 6. Again, hold it down until it flashes and then press your button to get the desired effect. So if we take this to say 15 watts, press fire, that is now locked in place. And it will remember that. So if we click it off and then click it back on again, it remembers what you had it set at last, whether that be 15 watts or 6 volts. It remembers where you are. If you hold the plus and minus together very briefly, you will get your puff count. Get it right and you'll be able to do it. It's very difficult to do like this. Let me put that down like that and see if I can do it this way. There you go. If you hold it down very briefly, you get your puff count, the battery life left, and the resistance of your atomizer. If you hold down the plus and minus for about 4 seconds, there you go, it changes the display. So if you're a lefty or a righty, you can have the display the other way round. Let me change that back. And we're back the other way. It does actually as well consider every single push of the fire button to be a puff. So it's not a strict puff counter. It's more like a how many times the fire button was depressed counter. But having said that, it works extremely well. Let me move on to the USB cable, and we'll take the little plastic off. It's a nice robust cable. It's well sealed on both ends and it's quite a thick cable. It's also got the iTaste branding on the side there, on the side of the USB plug. So you know that this is your iTaste cable, and it's always better to use the cable that comes with your device. I've actually lost the cable that came with my Android tablet, my Samsung Android tablet. I've mislaid it, don't know where it is, and I've tried many cables, but none of them will work with it because it's also a data cable, whereas this isn't. But it's always better to use the cables that come with your devices if at all possible, especially for charging. So what devices can this handle? Well, as you can see, it's got the 510 connection, so anything that is 510 will fit on top, and it will handle resistances from 0.4 ohms all the way up to 2.5. Like I said, the wattage, it goes from 6 watts to 30 watts in 0.5 increments, and on the voltage side it goes from 3 volts to 9 volts in 0.1 of a volt increment. The LED on the top, green for good, amber for get ready to charge, red charge. And like I said, if you plug a USB cable into that and then plug in a phone or a tablet or what have you, it will start to charge immediately, as long as you've got enough battery left in your battery, which by the way is a 3800 milliamp hour lithium ion. I did use this to charge my phone, as I said. Now on the old versions you had an on-off switch, and this being the version 1, you can see that you could turn the USB power on or off. It's basically on all the time, but it won't draw anything unless you've got something plugged into it. But it's quite handy to have that other little cable on there. It's no good if you've got your phone in a case, like I have. I have my Android phone in a case, this Otter case, and it doesn't fit in there. However, the other cable will. and it will charge quite nicely. So let's put a device on, and I have one of my sub tanks, and this has got the original 0.5 ohm stock coil in there, and I've got it filled up with some nice juice, and it fits on quite nicely. There's a little bit of an overhang with this one because it is the larger tank. If you use the smaller tank, then I'm sure it would be fine. And if we look on here, it's actually telling me, and I'll zoom in for you as well. Right, there we go. That's telling me it's 0.7 ohms, and I've got it at 15 watts. So we'll give it a little bit of a toke at that, I think. And it produces quite nicely. This is 18 milligram juice, so at half an ohm, it's quite heavy. But you can see there, produces quite nicely. So let's go back to me in the studio. Yes, back to me. And I was just typing in chat there as well. I left on the screen, I left the plastic film on. I always do, really. I bug up for leaving plastic films on. So it's not marked up. It's just that I left the plastic film on because it tends to get scratched in my pocket. I've got the iClear 30S on at the moment, and it's vaping rather nicely. But someone else who's looked at this is Mr. Dave Dawn with Sav, and this is what they thought of it.
Hello Marco, you alright son? How you doing? Yes, MVP3 Sav. MVP3, I have one here. There it is, look, that's an MVP3. Have you seen one before? No. It's not like the MVPs you used to. It's black.
Good start.
It feels very metallic. I think it's slightly bigger than the other ones, but the button's not on the flat side anymore. The button is on the side beside the display. Now Mark will be telling you all about this. He'll be doing it on his show, Mark will.
Will he?
He will, aye.
That's good.
They have a blast. Does 30 watts this one. Lovely display on it, I think.
It's much. Yeah, I much prefer the button on the side to on the front.
Are you thumbing it, darling?
I am.
Yeah, I say.
Oh yes.
Is that working all right?
It is. That's nice.
Yes.
Oh, and they've done my favourite thing.
What's that?
USB port on the side rather than on the bottom.
Yes, if you've got something that's going to leak when it falls over, you can stand it up to charge. It's great. And it doesn't fall over very easily, at least not with, what's that I've got on it?
An Aspire Atlantis, I'm guessing.
That's it, the Atlantis, yes. I couldn't remember what it was called. It's because I'm constipating on me driving.
It's probably wise.
Yes, very much so. So, chargy thing on the bottom.
Oh,
You can pull that out.
Oh, right.
Aye, if you pull it out,
No.
pull it out, and so you've got a full-size USB to plug into, and you've got a micro USB that you can plug into other things.
That's so good.
Clever, isn't it?
Yeah. I like that. I mean, the one thing I'll say, it feels very cold. It's very, does he say, metallic?
It's built like a brick outhouse.
Yeah.
Brick outhouse. I mean, I reckon if you dropped that on your foot, you'd break your toe before you broke the mod.
You know about it. It's very sort of angular.
Angular?
Angular.
Is that named after the German Chancellor? Angela Merkel?
Angular.
Angela Merkel, yes. It's, I'm actually, it's good. And there's all kinds of little bits and bobs that are decent about it. For instance, if you finger the button rather than thumb it, when you take it a drag, you will spy a little light on the top in your eye line.
So you do?
And currently that will be, he said, making an assumption because blue's not on the radar for this, it'll be green.
It is green.
That's because it's fully charged.
Green?
Don't you know?
That's clever. I like that.
So you can see when it's starting to lose a bit of chuck, because the little light on the top goes hello. Not the new social media service hello. The hello with a y in front. Hello. Or Amber. So you've got a visual clue all the time.
Good, I like that as well.
As to where your charge is. Try changing the wattage on it though, but
Nothing happens.
aha. Nothing happens. You have to hold the button down until your wattage flashes.
It's a big button. Oh, I know it's there.
One of the bottom buttons. Then you can change it.
So it locks the wattage in place.
It auto locks.
That's clever.
It is. It is if you've read the instructions. if you haven't read the instructions, then Anglo-Saxon words get used quite a lot.
Yes.
So me being a man, when it arrived, I took it out of the box, and of course it sat at something silly like 5 watts or whatever. And I'm sitting pressing the button, and there's nothing happening. So I learned words like and poo and little bits of sick.
Then did you read the instructions?
Then I read the instructions. Yes.
So is it the 5 clicky on and off?
3.
3.
3 clicks on and off. Very clear screen on it.
It is.
I think a valuable addition to the holster of resource, as it were.
I would agree. I like that.
Penny in it.
It is. I haven't got a top pocket though.
You're not Keith. Sorry and all that. Is 9 to cry?
I had to do that. Things you have to do.
What? Get on, lung it. Chuck a cloud, I dare you.
I don't know how to do. I'm ladylike.
Yes, I dare you.
Go on.
I'll show you how. That'll do.
Sure.
Who, me? You just have to breathe quick. I tell you what I do like as well with this, the whole thing, is that the display only stays on for so long and only comes on when you press the button. No, it's nice. As bits of kit go.
Yeah. It's much better than the version 2. And the
Yes.
version 2 was kind of...
Version 1 I liked. The button on it was a
The
doddle,
button was much better than version 1.
but in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Version 2, the button was a little bit more.
Annoying.
You needed to be more assertive with it.
You did.
It took rather more of a push.
Yes.
This fits under my index finger just the way I like it at the minute.
Yeah, buttons in the right place.
If it had just had a curvy bottom, curvy back, curvy bottom, so that it sat in the crook of your hand a little bit better, it would be almost perfect.
Yeah.
But stars out of 10,
Oh, I would give it probably about an 8.
I would go 8.5. Nothing worth getting niggled about. And as Marco will doubtless show live in his hands, the micro USB cable that comes with it is a proper piece of kit, decent length, and it's white.
Ooh.
I like white wires.
Yes, so do I.
White wires are good.
My way is a good.
So yes, nothing. I mean, what's there's just niggles. I think if somebody picks it up and gets it in their hands, you'll know whether it's comfortable for you. But in terms of workage, it workage very nice. We like,
I know.
right? We should carry on driving then, eh?
Aye.
We're off on the road to the other side of the country. There you go, Marco, mate. Have fun with it. See you later. Bye.
And there you go. That's what Mr. Dave Dawn and Sav thought about the MVP version 3.0 on the way down to, I think they went to see Totally Wicked or something. I can't remember where they were going to. Anyway, so there you go. I quite like it, I have to say. I'm a big fan of the box mod, as you know. I like the fact that I can put it down and it's not going to fall over. It's quite weighty. It's a nice device. I think they missed a trick with not putting a DNA 40 chip in it. That would have been good for the next MVP. Maybe that would do that on the version 4. And the little charging cable, it's a little bit small. It would be nice if it retracted in, to get a decent length out of it, and then retracted back, in the old style of the cylinder Hoover, where you click the button and it went and shot back in. But apart from that, it's a cracking little device, and I should be using it quite a lot, along with the old Vaper Shark. I have to say that this Vaper Shark with the RBA in it has got Ni200 coil on it for temperature control, and it works on this. It's 0.5 of an ohm, and it works quite well. Obviously you can't use temperature control, but Ni200 wire works. So there you go. Right, we need to go because we've gone over by 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yes, well over by 5 minutes. So very quickly, Mr. Dibley, on next week's show, I believe we are bringing MFT back again, which I moved from this week to next week.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be back, and I'm going to be cracking on with some other bits as well.
Smashing. And your lips didn't even move.
They didn't.
I don't know how you do it. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And my hair's perfect.
I wish mine was. Well, it is perfect. There's just not much of it. Never mind. So don't forget, tomorrow night it's the cave with... Oh, no, it's not. It might not be the cave tomorrow night. Tune in. Keep an eye on Twitter and the Facebook feeds to find out what's coming out tomorrow night. Thursday it's Dave with the Haze Hour, Dave and Keith. Sunday it's the Tackle Box. Monday it's Drips and Tips. And Tuesday it is myself and Mr. Gary Dibley with a new camera, one would hope.
One would hope, yes.
One would hope, yes. So until next week, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Tatty bye.
See you later.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.